What's good, my people? What's good? What's good? It's been a minute. I ain't seen y'all in a minute, man. So it's good to be back. It's good to see y'all. Hope y'all day has been going well to this point. And I'm just happy, man, to have another opportunity to be amongst you guys, man, and gals with some more uh, good topic insight. Before I get started with the show, man, a couple things. I want to shout out uh, my daughter, man, my oldest daughter. Has a cup and a planner out. The cup mindset of the female boss. So if you are a female boss or you think you're a female boss, you want to be a female boss, make sure you get yourself one of these cups, man. Yeti cup, mind of a female boss. I don't have the planner to show you, but she has planners as well. Now that I got that out the way, second thing I want to say, shout out, man, and prayers out to Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson, some of y'all probably know who Nate Robinson is, some of you maybe not. Nate Robinson is a former NBA player who played basketball with a variety of different teams, Celtics, Suns, different teams like that. But Nate Robinson right now needs a kidney transplant. Not they're not really expecting him to live extremely long without one. So he is in need of a kidney transplant. So prayers out to Nate Robinson, man. Hopefully he gets that transplant sometime soon. I've been missing in action for a couple of weeks, man. Last time I was in front of you guys, I told you we were doing some tinkering with the show. We were changing some things up. Just trying to do a little restructuring on how we actually did the show. Ran into a couple of, um, I was sick for a little bit. Then this toothache has been really giving me the blues. So we're gonna give a go of it tonight. Our topic tonight is relationships and marriage. Relationships and marriage. Before I get off into the topic, man, I want to say, full disclosure, this is extremely important to me that I say this. Um, Nobody, male or female, should ever be subjected to any relationship that is dangerous or detrimental to your health or well-being. Um, there's been a lot going on in the news the last couple of days, um, as far as exes and spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends uh, fighting, killing one another. Um, this is a very serious um, situation. I think ignoring signs of danger, ignoring signs of people not being able to function properly when there is a breakup in a relationship is careless. Never overlook signs, because even though a person may tell you it's all good, or a person may perceive to be okay, um, you never really know where a person's mindset lies. So be extremely careful, man, in those situations, and don't overlook the warning signs. Some people can handle breakups, uh, a lot better than others. So be careful, man, in those situations. Now let's get into it, man. So obviously, I got two note cards here. The first note card says relationships. The second one, marriage. Now, I'm not gonna profess to be a relationship expert. By far, I'm not a relationship expert. Not gonna act like I'm a counselor of any sort. These are just my opinions of how I think about, how I feel about certain situations and certain experiences and things of that nature. Obviously, people across the globe have been in different relationships, different situations, and things like that. So some may see it different, and that's okay. So the first thing I got here is different types of relationships. Obviously, you know, I've always been a firm believer of when you're entering into a relationship, there needs to be a clear cut understanding of what exactly that relationship involves. Is this a friendship? Is it a monogamous relationship? Is this a friends with benefits relationship? Is this a long term serious relationship? I think these factors need to be discussed up front where there are no surprises. I think a lot of times, and in experience, and I've learned that a lot of times when you first meet a person, male or female, I don't think gender matters, but male or female, there's always this stigma around this that people continue to say, I'm not really looking for anything serious. I'm just looking for a friendship. And I think that's the first lie that's told in that perspective relationship. I've said this many times. I can't really understand why a person would say, I'm only looking for a friendship if you saw this person and you were attracted to them physically. I think sometimes when you look at a person and there's a physical attraction, that first glance or that first instance, you're not looking at this person and saying to yourself, oh, I think this person is really smart. I think this is a very intelligent person. Well, you don't know them enough to know that. So your reaction or your response is physical. It's what you see. And I think a lot of times when you hear a statement like, "Oh, I'm just looking for friends. I ain't really, I'm not really looking for anything serious. I'm just looking for friends." I think the one thing that we miss in that statement, looking for friends, is the emotional aspect. Um, if a friend is truly what you are looking for, and a friend is truly what you are after, then there's no reason for you to cross any emotional lines. There's no reason for you to cross any physical barriers. Because the thing that happens when you start crossing physical barriers, even though you may be one to say, I can control my emotions. I'm cool. I'm not gonna be one that can get attached easily or things. You never know that until you become emotionally tied to something or someone. I think as soon as emotions get involved, all that friendship stuff is out the window. I think as soon as a person starts feeling some type of way about you, all of that emotional stuff is gone. I mean, all of that friendship stuff is gone. Um, they're not looking at, um, you know, them calling you and you not answering the phone. They're kind of feeling some type of way. They send you a text, you don't reply. They're feeling some type of way. And I think those things happen after there's a physical interaction. I think as long as you're not physical and the interactions are just you just communicating, hey, how's your day type stuff, you don't really have a chance, you don't really run a risk of being emotionally tied. But I think once you start getting physical, things change, right? And so another thing that I've learned in a relationship, in relationships, or getting into prospective relationships, is that we don't really do our homework. We don't really do our due diligence in finding out exactly who we are getting into a relationship with. I think that physical dynamic decides for the most part how we move, right? If he's good looking or if she's attractive, he sounds good, he seems intelligent, that's enough. Instead of us doing our really researching this person, what I mean, how do you treat your mom? How do you treat your sister? How are you with your kids? Do you work? How long have you worked at this job? These things, even though these things may not seem like a big deal, they are a big deal. And I think if we started, really looking into those things in the beginning, in the beginning. Obviously, you don't know if it's going to be long term or not. But if your goal is to get into a relationship with somebody, a serious long term relationship, these are things you need to know. How often you visit your mom. What is your relationship with your mom? What's your relationship with your kids? What's your relationship with your kids' moms? These things matter. The answers that you give to these questions make a difference. I think another thing that matters too is standards. Sometimes you get into a relationship and the person you get into a relationship is a certain way or has certain standards or they've been moving a certain way differently than you have. But again, this is a person you want to get into a relationship with. So now you have to decide, do I want to move like this? Am I okay with you moving like this? Is this something that I want to get into? Are you willing to change? Are we willing to move a certain way together? All these things matter. I think sometimes we'll find ourselves settling for certain things that we generally or normally wouldn't settle for because we see a person who we feel is worth that. A person we feel is worth us making these changes for. But I gotta tell you, just like I said in the beginning, we always tend to ignore certain signs. And I think for us, that's the biggest downfall in relationships. We see certain signs and we like, maybe that's that's just today. Like, you'll walk in the room and he'll be on the phone with his mom and he's yelling and screaming and cursing and you like, who is that? I didn't know, that's my mama. And in your mind you want to say, you talk to your mama like that? You know what I mean? But you don't say it. You listening, but you don't ask, you don't say, why are you talking to your mama like that? That matters. You may walk in a conversation where she's on the phone, with her children's dad, or he's on the phone with his children's mom, and the conversation is not pleasant, or it doesn't go how you think it should go, or you don't think that relationship should be as close knit as it is. These are things you need to investigate in the beginning. Because what happens is if you don't investigate things in the beginning of a relationship, right? You get complacent and comfortable with how things are in the beginning of the relationship. Then somebody else sees these dynamics, a family member, sister, your mom, and they say, well, they cool? Like him and what they got going on? You like, oh, that ain't nothing. And you'll have somebody in your ear saying that is something. They a little too cool, right? That relationship shouldn't be that smooth. Being that he's trying to enter into a new relationship with you, but that's a person that doesn't know the dynamics of what's going on. That's a person that's on the outside looking in, trying to tell you how to handle a situation that's already handled, right? And so I think sometimes new relationship, and it's funny because I've always said, I don't know why, but I've always said that new relationships always start at the end of an old relationship or in the process, right? I think now, I'll say 2024, but shoot, the 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, you pick a year. I think people in general have become more relaxed to accepting certain things in relationships. I think so many times, you'll not want to accept things, but you feel like, well, I've been in this relationship so long, I don't want to rock the boat. Things have been going so well, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to do anything to disrupt how we've been moving. Even if you disagree, with it, even if you don't really like it, you just choose to stay quiet because you don't want to rock the boat. And that's not always a good idea. I think in the beginning of any relationship, if there is no communication in the beginning, right? See, I'm a texter. I'm not really a phone, like on the phone. I'm not really big on having phone conversations and talking on the phone. One, because people don't really have anything to talk about. Two, is always what you're doing. Oh, okay, I ain't want nothing. Oh well, man, you wasted a phone call. You could have texted that, right? But I think texting has made people a lot lazier uh, in relationships. Texting has taken a lot of the responsibility out of your role in a relationship. You can just text something and you ain't got to deal with the actual voice, the actual conversation or the emotion of the conversation. You can just send a text and be like, oh, well, I talked to her, you know what I'm saying? But you really didn't talk to her. You sent a text, right? And so, I just found in relationships you know, a lot of us, men and women. That I mean, again, gender. I don't think gender is important. I think a lot of us have gotten to a point to where we've begun to settle just because we don't feel like there's better options. If that makes sense, I think we just like, oh well, ain't nobody perfect. You know what I mean? He work. He's a nice guy. He looks good. He's clean. Instead of saying, yeah, but shoot, I only see him once a month, you know what I mean? Or I don't never really hear him talk about his children. I don't never really see him or hear him talk about his parents or his upbringing. You know, all these are signs. These are things that matter because guess what? If I never, this me. If I never hear you talk about your children or your parents or your sisters or siblings, I'm kind of worried about that. Because what happens if I mean obviously I'm past the time past the having kids stages. We talking about new relationships, young whatever. But I'm past the kid stages. But if you're thinking about having children, you might want to have children with somebody who's really excited about having children. Somebody who's really excited about being a father or a mother versus you just want to have kids and this other person's just like, man, hey, I already got two. I don't need no more. You can help me with these two. You know what I'm saying? And there's not really an enthusiasm about that particular aspect of the relationship. I just think we don't do enough research before jumping into these relationships, right? I've never been really big on clubbing. Clubbing has never been something that's really been something that I've always been a fan of. Not because um, I didn't like the scene. I've never really been like a crowd person. But two, I just learned all the years I used to go to the club, it never really served a purpose. You know what I mean? Like, no knock on women, but women get all jazzed up, dressed up, put on all this nice stuff, all this makeup to smell good, and go to a club where they know there's going to be men there who are going to want to talk to them, and yet you don't want to talk. You don't want to talk. You go in there and then, I mean, obviously if they're buying drinks, you may have a little conversation, but you don't really want to talk. You just went through all this to be noticed, and then when you're noticed, you don't want to be noticed. So that was that's always been a bit confusing. But I just think relationships now have gotten so different because now it's so easy to for some people to fool you, right? Because you're not doing the work. You know what I'm saying? Somebody can tell you, yeah, man, I work at the Ship Channel. I make such and such, and whatever. I drive this my car in the shop. I'm single and this and that, and you're not gonna know the difference unless you happen to pull up at the job. I mean, unless you asking the right questions, you're not gonna know. You just gonna take his word for it or take her word for it, and that's the first mistake when getting into these new relationships. You know what I'm saying? I think the value that you should have in a relationship, first of all, it's ridiculous for anybody to settle or put up with anything from somebody who's not um, worth that, if that makes sense, right? Not to say that because a person's worth that you should go through any type of stress or strain or BS. I'm not saying that, but I think it's more logical or feasible for a person to say, you know what, yeah, he a knucklehead, but he's a great dad. He's a provider. Um, you know, he's working. He's doing this. He's doing that. Versus he's a knucklehead, and I ain't got nothing to show for it. If you know if that makes sense. I think a lot of times relationships now people are going for relationships or meeting people for prospective relationships based on financial stability and monetary means. And I think that's a bad idea because when you get into a relationship with a person who is financially well off or monetarily able to pay your bills or take care of you, buy your car, clothes, shoes, or whatever, um, that comes at a price. I don't care what anybody tells you. Nobody's giving you their money or buying you things or paying bills for nothing. Something's coming with that. Whether it be control, whether it be uh, you providing something for them, something's coming with that, with them paying all that stuff. And a lot of times, we look at the news. Today I saw somebody today, yesterday, I want to even say the day before, ex-boyfriend, new boyfriend shoot ex-boyfriend. Um, Girlfriend stabs husband. All this stuff is going on for different reasons, but control has a lot to do with it. This person is trying to control how you think. This person is trying to control who you go out with, or where you going out, and things of that nature. And I think we're just ignoring those signs when we're getting into new relationships. As I said, this friends with benefits thing is it ain't new. It's been going on, but I think it's evolved now so much so to where now you can be married or in a previous relationship and none of that will matter because a friends with benefits relationship doesn't care about that, right? Like a person, you can find yourself telling somebody, no, matter of fact, I was helping somebody move some stuff yesterday, and young lady was walking out of a business and was engaging in conversation or what have you, and said to me, um, "Do you do good?" And I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "Do you do good?" And I paused for a second. We laughed, me and my boy laughed at this after the fact. And I said, "I'm confused. What do you mean, do I do good?" And she said, "Well, I don't." And right away, I knew exactly what that meant. I knew exactly what that dynamic meant immediately. And so you will have people, male and female, who just won't care about your situation. They will not care. Doesn't matter. You can tell them you're married. You can tell them you've been in a relationship 10 years. You can tell them you're not looking. Um, they won't care because they're not into it for the long haul. They're not into it to have you um, as their main focal point. This is just something they're doing for the benefit, right? And so obviously when you entering into those kind of relationships, you gotta be mindful that whatever the goal is, whatever your plan is, you gotta know what you're getting yourself into. At 49, and again, there's no let y'all see that mindset of a female boss. My daughter is cup. So at 49, there's no way that, and this is objectively speaking, honestly speaking. At 49, there's no way for me, there's no way objectively a person in the real world can assume you can do the same things at 49 that you were doing at 29. That math ain't mathing. One, at 29, your mind is different. Two, your body's different. Three, the world is different. So now here you take and you add 20 years from 29 to 49, right? You're in the same situation. Your mind is different, your body is different, and the world is different. So even though I still play basketball, but at 29, I was doing things with that basketball that was amazing. Here I'm playing at 49, I can't do over half the stuff with that basketball that I was doing at 29. It don't work, right? And so it's the same mentality in a relationship. If you are in a relationship, y'all know it. Some of y'all know it. Some of y'all may still be 29. I don't know. But if you are 40 to 50, 40 to 50, you know a relationship in your 20s ain't going to be the same as a relationship in your 50s or 40s. It's different. The dynamics are different. The people are different. How you see things and how you process things are different. That's called evolution. It's different, right? So when you digress, well, you not digress, but you jump from a relationship to now a marriage, right? You decide, well, I've been in this relationship, I haven't many years, we'll say 4 or 5 years. And now here you are now wanting to enter into a marriage, right? The dynamics from a relationship to a marriage change. Even though people will tell you, some will tell you, oh, it's the same, man. We've been together. We've been together 17 years, but we've been married 5. So it ain't much difference. It's a lot different. Guaranteed, it's a lot different. Yeah, we've been knowing each other. We've been high school sweethearts, but we've been married for 2 years. Well, how is it? Oh, it's great. Sure, it's great. But why is it great? What happened to make it great? I think a lot of times, myself included, the misconception about married life for some has people curious. What people think about married life, or what people hear about married life from, whether it be friends, family members, mom and dad, or what you may have seen, is completely different for you when you get married. Solely because you're not them. You're not them. So there's no way you can act the way they act. There's no way you can go through a marriage the way they went through a marriage. The dynamics are different. It's not the same dynamic. I think in most part, you'll find a lot of, I don't know about now, 2024, you probably have a lot of people saying, man, I ain't getting married. I don't want no parts of it. I'm cool. With being single, I don't want to do it. No. And obviously it's each his own. But you'll have people who will ask this question. Marriage, why do it? Why do it in the first place? Why get into it from the beginning? Now, here's the deal. I remember, obviously my mom and dad were married a great while. I want to say my mom and dad got divorced when I was about 16. So there were a lot of things that I was able to see. I mean, I'm the oldest, so there was a lot of things that I was able to see throughout the marriage that weren't all good, right? But there were also a lot of things that I was able to see that were phenomenal, that were great. You know what I mean? So when I was having some of my friends get married, family members, my cousins getting married, uh, you know, I never really inspected or investigated their marriages. Like I didn't go and ask them, how is it? Is it like what they say? Is it cool? You know, or do you like it? Do you regret it? I never asked those questions because one, without getting biblical and getting into what the Bible says about marriage and things of this nature, we know as black folks, man, traditionally marriages lasted forever. You know, if your grandma got married to your grandpa, uh, they was married to one of them probably died, right? You know, if your auntie was married to your uncle, you know, they probably was married to one of them died. It wasn't a high divorce rate, you know, back in the day. And so the blueprint, we can't look at that and say, well, shoot, what's the problem today? There's a lot of problems today. Um, I think one, getting married to the right person is the key. You know, I think not realizing, you know, a lot of people, understandably, a lot of people probably getting married for all the wrong reasons. And obviously, when you get married for all the wrong reasons, you probably, you know, in a high number, will probably find people who are marrying the wrong person. I think most people who have been through divorce or gotten divorced didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? I don't think they got married and said, "Yeah, I'm just gonna stay married," like the man on Martin Pam. I'll never stay married more than 2 years. But all my wives is cool. I don't think anybody said, you know, I'm just gonna marry him and in 5 years I'm gonna divorce him and marry somebody. I don't think anybody went through that process. I think anytime uh, a person said, "Hey, yeah, I do," I think they assumed or hoped it was for the long haul, right? Obviously, things happen. You know, people change. You know, and so you really can't um, look at that dynamic and say, you know, well, what happened? Well, a number of things probably happened. But which brings me to my next point: failure, marriage failures. So here's what I want to say, and you know, the funny thing about this is obviously 2024 is not 1974. We can all agree. Um, sure, you know, 1974, 1984 was probably a different time. You know, obviously things were you know, here families was probably more important as far as keeping together and um, I don't want to say tolerating certain things because that means like you just had to deal with certain things for stuff to flow. But I think in that time frame, 60s, 70s, maybe early 80s, I think that time frame there wasn't a lot of female independence, if that makes sense. There wasn't a lot of women um, who were walking around with the bag. There weren't a lot of women who were just in position to say, "Hey, I don't need no man. I'm cool. You know, I don't have to have you um, to do this or do that for me to be okay." I think it was quite the opposite. I just think there weren't a lot of guys. You know, when you look at single moms back then, I don't think they were single moms because that was a choice. I don't think they just said, you know, yeah, go on. I want to be a single mom. I don't believe that. I think there were a lot of knucklehead dads or men who didn't want to have anything to do with, uh, you know, probably raising kids or being a husband or being in the household, which reverted to women becoming single moms and having to do what they had to do. I think obviously if you have family members now, aunties or uncles or your grandparents are still married, your mom and dad are still married, and um, they've been married, let's say, what is this, 24, 30, 40 years, right? We'll just use that as, we'll just say 35, 40 years is a nice round number. Um, you have to understand, well, you don't have to understand, but it would make more sense if you understood it wasn't all good, right? Like, if you think anybody who has been married for 25, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years and it was all good, you delusional. I think um, we'll just use church for an example. I just use church for an example because people can relate to church. Um, I grew up in a church. I grew up at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. From out the womb to a grown man. I grew up in this church. I grew up around the majority of my family. But everybody that I grew up around in this church, I was around for 20, 25, 30 years, right? So deacons, deacons' wives, pastors' wives, you know, I saw marriages that, you know, people were married like firsthand. I saw people who were married 40, 50, 60 years. Um, Being that I was in the same church all this time, you know, from a kid growing up. But I also saw and also realized that none of these marriages were perfect. None of them were perfect. None of these people, you know, went through this 50 or 60 year marriage where it was all getting along all the time, where it was all you know, happy times, where it was all we agree with each other all the time, where it was all faithful all the time, it was all honesty all the time. No, hell no. If you think that, something is wrong with you. That's not reality. Period. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's not reality. Now, does that mean, because I want to be clear, I want to be clear, does that mean that everybody had a bad marriage? No. Does that mean there weren't marriages that didn't have bumps in the road? Probably not. But it does mean the reality is every day wasn't peaches and cream, right? There were instances. I'm telling you, there's always going to be instances where you don't have to even talk about 34. We can talk about it right now. There are always going to be instances that are going to pose challenges to a marriage. Always. It's just going to be. I mean, back then, obviously, the challenges that were posed weren't stronger than the love, if that makes sense. Like, challenges came, things happened, but the love was stronger. The love was able to withstand all that stuff. The love was able to bear all that stuff, right? I think this day and time, marriage has gotten to a point to where one is overrated to most, two is not that important to some. I think three, it's not taken as serious as it probably should be taken across the board. You know, looking at, in retrospect, looking at, you know, a marriage, foundational marriage, a structured marriage, where the couple's been married 60 years, right? 50, 60 years. And then you find somebody and you say, hey, you know, my mom and dad's been married 50 years. I want that, right? I want to be just like my mom and daddy. My mom and daddy still married. They've been married all my life, right? But guess what? I guarantee you, if you went and you sat down and you had a conversation with your mom and dad, and you said, hey, mom, you know, whether you had it with them separate or together, you said, hey, mom, how was the marriage? How was married life? How was it? Like, was it all good? Did you guys argue? Did you fuss? Did you fight? Did dad cheat on you? Did you cheat on him? You know what I'm saying? You gonna be surprised at some of the answers you get. Guaranteed. You're going to be extremely surprised at some of the answers that you get when you asking these questions. Because we're under the assumption, and understandably so, nobody's perfect. For a marriage to last 50 years or 60 years, you're going to have to go through some stuff. You have to be able to deal with some stuff, put up with some stuff, tolerate some stuff. Your patience is going to be tested way more times than what you care to want to admit. The question is, when those questions start being asked, are you able to be honest about it? Are you able to say to your son or your daughter, yeah, I did this. Yeah, this happened. Sure. You know what I mean? Your dad's not perfect, or your mom's not perfect. We went through this. We did this. This happened. We dealt with this. These things took place. But here we are 60 years later. We survived it. I think a lot of times we don't really realize to survive something, you got to go through something. To be able to stand firm and be in a situation and be with somebody, the same person, one person, 60 years, you're going to have to go through some stuff. I promise you, you're going to have to go through some stuff. If you married to somebody, you ain't never had an argument, you ain't never had a disagreement, you ain't never fell out, you ain't never slept on the sofa, you ain't never not wanted to come home once or twice, something's wrong with that picture. Something's wrong with that picture. That's the truth. I mean, whether you got past it or got through it or whatever is not relevant. But if this stuff has never happened to you, you ain't in a real marriage. You ain't in a real marriage. Guaranteed, you're not in a real marriage. Anybody who tells you, and listen to me. I want to be crystal clear when I say this to you. Anybody who tells you that, oh yeah, man, married life is everything. Man, I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world. Man, you ought to do it. You ought to do it. I guarantee you, I would bet you money they've been married 20 years or better. Bet you some money. They've been married 20, 25, 30, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. It ain't been no 4 or 5 years. Guaranteed. Because here's the deal. There's no way you can be married to a person 4 or 5 years and know everything it is to know about this person. How? It ain't possible. The person you marry in 2010 ain't gonna be the same person in 2015. It ain't. But the person you marry in 2010, if you still with them in 2030, guess what? They've changed enough and you've changed enough for you guys to understand this is where we are. You've been through it. This is where we are. Anybody who's been married 25, 30, 40 years, I guarantee you, they can tell you honestly, yeah, it's worth it. Because they've been through the storm. They done been through everything under the sun. They done left, one of them probably done left, came back. They probably done disagreed. The wife probably ain't cooked dinner one night because she was mad. You probably had to work. I'm telling you, something's happened over that time to where you guys have gotten to a point to where you say, you know what? If we gonna continue to be married, we're gonna have to learn how to deal with this situation. We're gonna have to learn how to deal with each other's dislikes. We're gonna have to learn how to deal with each other's anger issues. We're gonna have to learn how to deal with each other's this or that and the third. That's the only way you're gonna be married 25 or 30 years. I think now in the new era, nobody's worried about that. Man, you get mad at somebody that you don't want to talk to them no more. Somebody do you wrong the first time, you don't want to talk to them no more. Somebody does this, you think they the enemy, but you don't realize life happens in waves. It happens in waves. There's no way in the world you marry somebody in 1995 and they the best person in the world in 1995. In 1996, they the devil. How? You ain't been with them long enough. How? How can that person now be How can that person now be the devil? That makes no sense. It just don't make sense because, listen, I've seen firsthand, firsthand. I've seen firsthand marriages go through real life changes. I've seen it. How many times have you seen a marriage that's lasted 50 years? Follow what I'm saying to you. A marriage that's lasted 50 years, and then the husband passes away. And then a month later, the wife passes away. Wife never been sick ever. Or, wife passes and then a month later, husband passes. One of them may never been sick ever. But they go right after each other. How many times have you seen that? Whether it's real life on TV or somebody you know or family member, whatever, how it happens all the time. Because you've been with this same one person 60 years. This is your glue. So now all of a sudden you lose this person. There's nobody else that's gonna fit you like this person fits you. So what happens? You lose your will. You lose your desire to continue to live. I'm telling you, it happens. Sometimes we can marry the wrong person. We can marry somebody we think we're compatible with, and then find out 2 years into marriage, we don't even know this person. We done married somebody and didn't even do the research or the homework and to find out who exactly we married. You dating somebody or you in a relationship with somebody and they showing you all the signs of who they really are, but you overlook it because you want to be married so bad. You ignore all the warning signs because marriage, somebody has told you marriage is what it is. Yeah, if you're married to the right person, it's probably what it is. But even marrying the right person don't guarantee you peace 24/7 at a time. Even marrying the right person don't guarantee you're going to be happy 24 hours a day. No, that ain't even realistic. It's not even realistic. It ain't realistic. If you thinking that, then something's wrong. It ain't realistic. Ain't realistic. You have to get, not you, but we have to understand that entering into something, whether it be a relationship or a marriage, we gotta do our homework. We gotta do our homework. It's too many people who are getting into relationships with people they shouldn't be getting into relationships with. It's too many people marrying people who they probably shouldn't be married. It's too many people getting into these situationships where a person tells you exactly what you want to hear. Oh, I'm not tripping. It's cool. I ain't gonna say nothing. You don't say nothing. Until emotions get involved. And then once emotions get involved, that situationship turns into something entirely different. The dialogue is different, the conversation is different, the attitudes are different. It goes from I'm not tripping to, hey man, I ain't dealing with this. You gonna have to do this or something, because I'm not finna. You like, wait a minute, hey, where this come from? It comes from you not doing your homework. It comes from you not really finding out who it is you're dealing with. That's where it comes from. Person's nice to you the first 4 or 5 times you go out. They smiling, they happy, and everything is all good. And then all of a sudden, y'all get into a spat, and boom, he blows up. He's the devil, and you like, who is this person? I ain't never seen this person before. But you ignore that because he probably tells you, oh man, my bad. I shouldn't have probably acted like that. I was tripping. And you say, oh, it's cool. It's cool. Then you get into a relationship with this person. You enter into a relationship with this person or marriage with this person. And then this same person is telling you, come home straight from work. No, you can't go out with your girlfriends. I don't care if your mama gonna be there. I don't care if your sister's gonna be there. No, I want you to come straight home. And you like, man, you ain't, how you gonna tell me? You don't tell me no, come straight home, then you go do what you want to do and you get home and then he all upside your head. Do, 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 do. This is real life stuff, man. It's real life stuff. Some people don't know how to let go. Some people don't know how to not be in control of certain situations. So you have to do your due diligence, man. Some people, I don't care what they say to you about, I'm not tripping on that. Man, I'm grown. I ain't got time to be playing them games. Do not fall for that. Don't fall for that. You know what I'm saying? When you marrying somebody, make sure the person you marry is the right person to marry. Make sure you and this person have the same goals. Make sure you and this person on the same page. You have the same plans for the future. Maybe make sure you and this person are seeing eye to eye. Probably not on everything, but on enough things to where you're gonna be okay. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? Time, time is the one thing you will not be able to get back. Time is the one thing you will not be able to retrieve once it's gone. Once you've lost a substantial amount of time, there's no way to replace that time. It's gone. You know what I mean? The one thing I've learned, and I say this often, the one thing I've learned is you have to experience some ups and downs. You have to go through some heartaches and pains. You have to deal with peaks and valleys in order to understand. Keyword, understand. In order to understand who you are as a person. I think you going through what you go through, and another person going through what they go through, right? If it's done together, the right way, the both of you will survive it. But if the other person is not going through anything, they're not going to understand because they're not going through it. There's no way for them to understand. It's not possible. You know what I mean? But knowing that from a relationship into a marriage, you got to know people are not going to stay the same. No. People are not going to stay the same. People are going to change. As they should. As they should. You don't look this. I don't look the same at 49 that I did at 19. Man, I got gray hairs and everything going on right now. We change. But we don't just change physically. We change psychologically. We change emotionally. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes people are not comfortable with your change. That's for the most part, that's what causes the rift. That's what causes the separation or the dissension. People are just not comfortable with the change, or they don't want to change with you. You know what I mean? And I think the one thing I was telling somebody this, the other day. I think the difference between women and men, whether we talk about relationships or marriage, the difference between a woman and a man is women are more susceptible to tolerating BS than a man, if that makes sense. I think I don't expect people to like this comment or whatever, so don't hit the like button. But this is a fact. Women tolerate way more crap than what a man would tolerate, if that makes sense. I had somebody tell me one time, man, how would you feel, um, you know, if your wife did this or this happened or whatever, and objectively, you know, obviously, you know, your answers are different because you're not in that situation, but objectively, you say, man, hey, it is what it is. I can't control no grown person. It is what it is. But obviously, put in that situation, your answers change. Guarantee you, your answers change. I'm telling you what I know. You know, I don't expect fellas to agree, obviously, but I mean, I'm telling you, women are more subjected to accepting things than what we are as men. What a woman would tolerate and deal with and put up with and go through and accept, a man, not so much. Not so much. Even being wrong. Even with the man being the person who's wrong. Even with the man being the person who's caused most of the turmoil or the disconnect, still he will not accept or tolerate what a woman would accept and tolerate. These are facts. This ain't my opinion. These are facts. Guaranteed. I just think um, the build up, the emotional build is different. I think women are wired completely different emotionally than a man. I think men are wired um, way different. You know what I'm saying? You know, obviously women can be territorial. Men can be very territorial as well. I think women just are more susceptible to overlooking certain things versus a man gonna be like, man, ain't no back. No, I'm not. No, I ain't putting up with that. I'm not dealing with that. No, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously that creates, you know, what women always want to say or call double standards. You know, why is it okay for you to do it, but it's not okay for me to do it? You know what I'm saying? Why is it that you can do it, but I can't do it? And I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's ever okay when a man does whatever it is he does. I just think women are more acceptable to tolerating it to some degree, but I don't ever think it's okay. I think now we've gotten into a time where, you know, in this day and age, the I hate saying the new woman, but the new generation of woman is not as accepting or as forgiving or as tolerable as maybe 30 years ago, right? One because they make their own money. They have just as good a job as a man. Um, they're just as financially stable as a man. And so I think obviously 30, 40 years ago, women felt they needed men to pay the bills, to make sure that the lights didn't get cut off, to make sure the kids had food on the table or clothes on their back. Whereas now you got women saying, man, I don't. Anytime you have women who will openly tell you, I don't need no child support. I don't even want it. What does that tell you? He don't want to have nothing to do with his own kids. Oh well, I don't need it. We don't want nothing from it. That tells you that woman is able to do financially um, way more uh, than what they were able to do back in the day. Back in the day, that would never been a conversation. She'd been like, "Oh man, I ain't working. Man, I don't care what you do. You got to pay these bills. I need you here to pay these bills. I need you here, you know, to make sure these kids are going to school, to make sure they're not out here selling drugs. I need that male presence here to be the voice and the man of this house. You know, what you doing outside the house, not that it's okay with me, but at this point, it is what it is. I need you in the mix. Whereas now, you have a woman saying, man, I'm not putting up with none of that. Bye. I'm going to pay the bills. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And the third, and not realizing that you may be financially stable. You may be able to take care of all the bills. You may be able to make sure that there's a roof and clothing and all that, but you can't be dad. You cannot instill um, certain certain realizations that a man is able to instill, which is why you got, we're not jumping topics, but which is why you got so many kids, teenagers who are lost now. You got so many teenagers out here, man, who are getting high at 15, walking around with pants hanging off their butt at 15, um, you know, drinking at 15, in gangs at 15, you know, walking around with 15, 16 years old with guns because the male presence is gone. It's not there. It's not in the household. And that's not to say you physically have to be in the household, but you there should be a male presence active, and it's not that's not the case. And so, I've always said, when you looking for partners, husbands, um, there's certain things you should look at. I think you really find out who a man is, and I really believe this. You really find out who a man is when you see him in different elements. Um, Obviously people can pretend. You got some of the best pretenders in the world. But I think when you see a man around his mom, um, you see him around his children. That's the true essence of who that man is. That's him. Not in the club, not out with his boys, not in a hanging out atmosphere, but with his children, with his mom, around his family. That's when you really find out, or you really see the real person, because you're not gonna, a man's not gonna pretend for his kids. He's not gonna pretend around his mama, his grandma. You know what I mean? Like, that just ain't gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? See, back in the day, grandma, you would bring a girl. Well, I don't know about y'all, but me, I would bring a girl home, and introduce her to my grandma, and my grandma would literally tell me yes or no. And I'm telling you, every time she was right, for real. Now, you bring a girl home to your mama, shoot, your mama and the girl might be the same age. You bring a girl home to your mama's probably like, man, not even concerned. It's not a factor. But back in those days, if you brought somebody home to your grandma or to your mama, they paid attention. They looked at certain things. They asked certain questions. They were comfortable with saying, what are your grades like? Why do you want to date my grandson, or why do you want to date with my son? Now you bring girls or boys around your parents, they're not asking those questions. They not. Not all of them. They're not asking those questions. They're not asking. First of all, not a lot of kids are bringing their girlfriends or boyfriends around their families these days. They ain't doing that. No. Kids is not coming home saying, hey, Dad, this is my boyfriend. Hey, Mama, this is my girlfriend. But that ain't happening these days. That's not a regular thing. You have to, and moms and most parents, some parents not even asking you, who's your girlfriend and who's your boyfriend. They don't care. You got to be insistent. You got to be insistent on wanting to know who that is. And I think, obviously, when you start getting into the real dynamic of, relationships or marriages or whatever, you're looking for a blueprint. You're looking for somebody that you can pattern it behind. Like, man, I saw my mom and dad was married X amount of years. For the most part, it was all good. They argued every now and then, but for the most part, it was cool, right? And so, obviously, you're not going to take everything from it, but you're going to take what you think is the best part, and you look for that. Like most times, if you have a close knit relationship, if a girl has, like my youngest, Alex is, you know, if you know, you know, but Alex is like, I'm like everything to her. So obviously, probably when she's looking for a boyfriend or looking at a boyfriend, she's trying to probably pattern that boy behind me, right? Is he like my dad, right? And same thing with a man, you know, a boy with his mom. You know, when a boy's looking for a girl, a girlfriend, he's like, man, she kind of got some of the same qualities my mom had, right? And so those are things that make a huge difference when you start looking at the dynamics of relationships and marriages and things like that. Obviously, nobody's gonna hit a home run out the gate, but I think to assume that it's gonna be all good the whole time, I think that's not being realistic. I think you have to understand you're gonna face challenges. You have to understand you're gonna disagree. You have to understand that um, sacrifices are gonna have to be made across the board. I think the funny thing is, you know, you'll have some guys that'll tell you, women are supposed to follow men. We ain't supposed to follow women. It says I'm supposed to be the head of the household. And here's the deal. In order for a person to follow, they have to have something to follow, right? If that makes sense. I don't think um, anybody, any woman wants to follow a man who has nowhere to go, who has nowhere to take them. You know, goals now are different than goals 20 years ago. You can just tell by the way things are happening and by the way people are moving. Now the goal is I want a nice car. I want to drive live in a nice house, drive a fancy car. I want to have a bunch of jewelry on. I want to have the nicest shoes. This is the goal. I promise you, for most people, this is the goal. The goal is not financial freedom or independent wealth or residual income or making sure my kids are straight or making sure my grandson is set up. That's not the goal. The goal now is I want to impress people. I want to look good when I'm on social media. I want the likes. I want to do this. That's not that's the goal now. In a marriage, the goal is I want people to think we got the perfect marriage. I want it to look good on social media. I want everybody to think, we Martin and Gina, Martin and Gina. You know what I'm saying? But really, you Ike and Tina. You know what I'm saying? The goal shouldn't be worried about what other people think the marriage is. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be understanding that we are going to go through some things, but are we strong enough to make it through? And so, knowing that, and here's the deal. In all truth, here's the deal. It ain't always gonna work out. It's not. It's not always gonna work out. You know what I mean? Some of the people who I'm not throwing shade at anybody because I mean I can't throw shade at people's life. People's lives are what they are. But some of the people you follow on social media, some of the people you are fans of, some of the people you cheer for, some of the people you love so much, and you like living your life through them vicariously. Guess what? Ain't perfect. They not perfect. I'm just telling you, they not perfect. Some of the people you hold in high regard, they're not perfect. Think about that. Let that sink in. Let it sink in. Some of the same people, you look at Real Housewives and all these reality shows and look at Shawnee for example. Shawnee was married to Shaq. I don't know how many years. They got 4 or 5 kids. Shawnee divorced Shaq. She's now married to a pastor. Does that mean her life is that much better because she left Shaq and married a pastor? Not necessarily. It just means Shaq wasn't the one. Does that mean Keon is the one? As of right now, it looks like it. But we ain't gonna know that until the movie continues to play out. You follow what I'm saying? So, um, you can have all the best intentions in the world. You can want all the best things to happen, but sometimes it just don't work out like that. It just don't play out like that. And that's real life. That ain't fiction. That ain't something you read in a movie or see in a movie or read in a book. That's just real life. That's just real life. If you find um, you know a person who really and genuinely, and this is the honest God truth. If you find a person who really truly genuinely is for you, um, that person's probably gonna be very difficult to let go of. That person's probably gonna be very difficult to replace. And so, just as I said, make sure when you choosing relationship partners or you choosing marriage partners that you're doing your homework. That you're doing your research. That you're really looking into um, who this person is, the soul of who this person really is. Um, you know, I think that's a really big deal um, when you're looking for the longevity of how things should play out. You know what I'm saying? In the long run. The one thing that I will say, you know, in a relationship, a marriage, or whatever the case may be, the dynamics are always going to be different when there are children involved. Obviously, if you enter into a relationship and you have children already prior, mindset of a female boss, man, y'all better get it. Um, I'm not a female boss, but my daughter is, so I'm supporting. Um, I think anytime you have children prior to entering into a relationship, I think the number one thing that you should do is make sure that this person understands that your children are the most important factor into this relationship. And if that person also has children, then I think you should start looking at how that person is interacting with their children, because that's going to tell you a lot about how they interact with yours, if that makes sense. And so, I'm hopeful that anybody who is now entering into a relationship or a new bond, a marriage, or a new something like that, you really doing your homework, really doing your research. You know what I mean? You're really doing your due diligence into making sure that you entering into relationships with the right person, the right people. Um, you know, I think everybody who starts something new is always hopeful that this new venture, this new relationship is going to be better than the last one, right? I think, as I said earlier, it's hard to really know how things are going to play out until you got some years tallied. You know what I mean? Um, I just think it's difficult. You know, it's just difficult. You know what I mean? Being married is not. Anybody who tells you married life is easy, don't listen to them. Run fast as you can and go in the opposite direction, because they're not being honest with you. Period. They're not being honest. Um, I think the one thing, I've said this before, the one thing that I think that creates problems for marriages is, and obviously this is more so for younger folks, is that, as young people, we tend to forget the one thing that's the most important. The pastor always says, don't let anybody but God into this marriage. And I think that's the one thing that's never in the marriage. You know what I mean? I think it's a lot of interference from family members, friends, um, you know, people who are on the outside looking in, giving you an opinion on something they shouldn't be advising you on, which is attributed to you discussing things with people you probably shouldn't be discussing it with, right? Um, there's no reason why you should be married to a person, and instead of talking to the person you are married to, you are, what does they say? You are pillow talking with your best friend, or you're pillow talking with your sister or your brother or your mom or your dad, and giving them an insight on problems that are going on inside of a marriage that they should have no knowledge of. And as much as you would think you discussing this with these people is going to be helpful, it's never helpful. It's always hurtful. Because now here it is, you have people forming opinions or giving you opinions on situations that, believe it or not, they've probably done the same. They've probably put up with the same, or they've probably went through and dealt with the same, and didn't follow their own advice. And so I think that's the number one problem, with marriages, and why they fail, because instead of you talking to God about it, or you talking to your husband or your wife about it, you are talking to everybody else. And that's just never a good thing. It's never a good thing. And so I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate you guys' support. I know I've been off for a minute. You know, like I said, we're doing some tinkering with the show. We're doing a lot of tinkering with the topics on the show. I'm trying my best to, I guess, stay relevant to real life situations and real life problems and issues within our community, and trying to stay vigilant on discussing those things and not the nonsense that goes on. It's hard, man, because you have so much foolishness that people like. You have so much nonsense that people ascertain to think it's a good idea to watch. And, not that I want to compete with it, but, it's the nature of the beast. And so, again, I'm thankful, obviously, to be able to sit in front of you guys for another episode, and discuss the topic. To all my viewers who tuned in, I haven't really, I haven't really looked at it, but I see Everly's watching. My mom's watching. Yolanda's watching. Hey, Miss Allen is watching. My man Deb. Hey, man, how is it going? I appreciate that. Tiff, my sister's watching. Dwayne, my auntie is watching. Damien, what's up, my man? What's up, man? Solitaire. Quite a few people are watching. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, man. As always, if you have topics that you want to discuss, send them to me through Messenger, or just comment them, the topics, and then we'll get into it. I would really love to have topics where they're interactive topics, where people can actually have a platform to voice their own opinions. I think anytime you have a platform where people are able to speak freely is big. I think sometimes we want to get into certain things and want to talk about certain things, but we don't have the ability, or we don't have a way. So anything you guys want to get into, any topic you want to discuss, just inbox me, and I will make a way for you to be able to discuss those topics. I'll make it for you to be able to have your chance um, to discuss whatever topics you want to discuss. And and I get it. I know some are volatile, some are very sensitive topics. Some are probably, maybe untouchable to some degree, but you know, it is what it is. We get into it, we discuss it as much as we can discuss it, and try to be as forthright and honest. I think the bigger deal is just to be honest about it. I think that's the most important part of it. Just being able to be honest and open about certain things and certain topics is huge. Um, to everybody who has inboxed me, who's been missing my face, who's been missing the show, I'm great. I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for the concerns. I appreciate the text messages. Um, I ain't going nowhere, man. The show is here to stay. Um, I'm just, I'm thankful that I'm able to talk freely, to be able to have the ability to um, just do what I like to do. You know what I mean? It's everything for me. So you guys be good, man. Stay humble, and remember, even when you want to quit, even when you want to give up, even when you want to throw in a towel, don't don't do it, because the day you decide to give up may just be the day everything changes for the better. I'm out.